How's it? Welcome back to the channel. So a series I've been thinking about making here for a little bit is not my typical type of content where I'm talking about lucid dreaming and dream work and sleep and meditation and whatever. For this series, I thought I would kind of branch out a little bit and really just talk about anything that crosses my mind that I feel like talking about that isn't on my typical type of content, different type of hobbies and things I'm into, what it was like for me growing up and stuff like that. And so for starters, I figured we would go with a kind of heavy opener here and talk about something I've been dealing with basically my whole life, like a learning disability I got diagnosed with a long time ago, and kind of just what it was like for me, growing up and making it through school. So I guess I started at the very beginning, like small kid time. So I grew up on a horse ranch, and I have an older brother who's 4 years older than me. And we didn't like have the whole horse ranch to ourselves. We actually just managed it. And then we had a bunch of stalls that people would pay money to board their horses there. So it was full of a lot of people. And there were a lot of kids there that were like around my age. And there was older kids there that were closer to my older brother's age. So we had a nice group of friends and peers that, we could play with growing up. And really, talking about really young kid time, like before preschool, man, it was just all great. You know what I mean? I loved all the friends that we had down there. I loved playing with everybody and was really comfortable in that setting. But then when I started to go to school in preschool, it did not go that smoothly, right? Like not at all, where, of course I would do some things like, my parents would be dropping me off, I'd be crying and not wanting to go. And, my brother was really cool and nice about it. He would never just tell me this outright, but I could tell he was giving me these looks and giving me these vibes of, oh, come on, man, stop crying, just go to school, it'll be fine. But point being is, I really did not like going to preschool. I really never liked going to school at all throughout my entire life. Even at my current job, they're trying to tell me to go back to school, and I'm like, no. But anyway, so the only things I really can clearly remember from like my first year in preschool was that I just really didn't like it. Like having to interact with all the other kids was stressing me out and, giving me anxiety. I just didn't really want nothing to do with it. So I would basically just kind of like wall myself off and just kind of stay alone by myself. So like, for example, when recess time would come up and everybody else would be stoked on going out to recess, I actually did not like it at all. I wanted just to stay in the class, sit in my one chair and just kind of be left alone. So like when recess time would come, I would try just to go out there, sit down and stay by myself. But then, all the other kids, as young kids are, they want to come around and play and do whatever. And I just didn't want nothing to do with it. So I figured out pretty early on and quickly that if I just like keep moving and just walk laps around the big play area, then they'll leave me alone because, it's hard to keep up with me as I'm just walking around in aimless, boring circles. So that's what I did. I don't remember it being particularly hard, for any reason. I just knew I didn't like being there and having to interact with everybody. But something must have happened because remember at one point, they're having these parents-teacher conference things. And they were basically saying like, hey, Matt here is not progressing at the level he should be. We want to hold him back another year and put him in another year of preschool before we went to kindergarten. So I essentially failed preschool, which is nuts. But anyway, I didn't even realize that at the time. So then, the next year I'm going back to school again. And by this time, it was better. I was not crying, trying to leave my parents or anything like that. And actually on my second year of preschool, I ended up meeting like one of my best friends there from, my whole life. I met in preschool. So we had a little group of friends and stuff that we'd hang out with. So I was, playing around with them and stuff at recess. Something else that kind of stood out to me too at that point is, remember like when everybody was in class trying to learn how to write their names, and I already knew how to do that because I was there a whole year before. I was thinking like, oh shit, man, like look at this, man. These kids are having a hard time with it. I totally know how to do that. Whew, I got it, man. School is easy, man. I'm smart. This is, I got this stuff down. But something must have still been happening because as time progressed, I got to kindergarten. Again, don't remember actually having a hard time in kindergarten class per se, but something must have been happening because then I got to first grade. And then in first grade, I remember I had to take this test. And I didn't know what kind of test it was, but it was a dyslexia test. So I'm taking it. And I guess I either passed it or failed it, however you want to look at it. But at the other end of this test, it came out being, oh yeah, this guy is totally dyslexic. And I'm still not sure how you can come to that conclusion by just like doing a test. Because even though that's something I've been living with my whole life, I still don't really know I mean, I obviously have it, but I still don't really know how I have it. Like some people will say you see letters and stuff backwards, which definitely isn't the case for me. But anyway, I'll save that stuff for a later video. So in first grade, I take this test, find out I'm dyslexic. So my mom starts looking for different schools for me to go to. So then she finds this private school that's like specifically targeted at, you know, people with dyslexia and then other learning disabilities. So in second grade, I switched schools. And, you know, and it was kind of interesting at this other school. First of all, I did notice it was easier and I was kind of catching on to things better at this new school. But like pretty much half the school was either dyslexic and then the other half had just like full blown ADHD. So there would be times where like they would, like this alarm would go off and then all the kids that are on Ritalin or all the ADHD kids would have to go outside, stand in this big line by the water fountain and just shuffle down one by one as, you know, the teachers would hand them these little pills inside cups and they'd, you know, take it and go back to class, which I never really knew, you know, what was happening with that. But then now as an adult, knowing what Ritalin is, that is kind of nuts, you know, just to be pumping a bunch of second graders full of essentially speed. But either way, so that was that. You know, I guess I did fine enough in that school. But then from 6th to 7th grade, I actually ended up switching schools again. And so I guess for that part of it, like 7 to 12, I'll say that for the next video. And yeah, catch you on the next one.